Hello, my name's James Anderson and this is Montgomery's Kitchen. Today we're making Philly cheesesteak stuffed shells. We're going to need a green bell pepper, a Spanish onion. I'm using 3 mushrooms and 2 cloves of garlic. And of course, we're going to need a really nice steak from Bell's Meat and Poultry. This here is the flat iron steak. I decided to go with this just because it's a very lean steak, lots of marbling. There's rarely any waste to these things. They make a great steak for putting on the grill, fajitas, stir fries. It really isn't an end to the possibilities what you can use this for. But today we're going to be cutting this flat iron into 1/4-inch strips, and then once again with the grain we're going to cut it up and just kind of mince it. You know, we want these in real small pieces, 1/4-inch, both ways if you will. Then we're going to toss this right into our cast iron skillet. These things cook really well. It's a nice even heat and we're looking for a good sear. So let's finish cutting up this steak and then we're going to move on to the mushrooms. These are pretty easy to cut up. You just really want to do another 1/4-inch strip and then we're just going to chop these up very well. And don't have to worry too much about cutting these up. They're going to cook down really well, especially in with the steak and the onions and the peppers. It's going to work together really well. You won't even notice that they're in there. These are just some plain white cap mushrooms, but you could use shiitake mushrooms, anything that you really desire. I'm not a huge fan of mushrooms, honestly, but cutting these up so small and having them, in with the steak and the onion, they kind of get overshadowed, so you don't notice them as much. Next, we're going to be cutting our Spanish onion like we did in our Soup Toscana episode, and just going along those veins and then chopping up these onions in almost to minced, real fine cubes. It always seems like you have too much when you're chopping things up. Like these onions are gonna cook down really well and blend together, and don't get too nervous that you have too much to cut up. Next, we're gonna move on to our pepper, and we're gonna cut that right in half, and then we're gonna take the core out of it and all the seeds. Make sure you get the stem. And if you can get some of the vein that's in there, the white, it actually doesn't have any of the flavor that you're looking for, so that's kind of just a wasted piece. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into strips, and then once we get that cut into strips, we're going to go ahead and cut it across like we did with our onions, our mushrooms, and our steak, and get that so it's in nice cubes as well. I think a traditional Philly cheesesteak actually has just peppers, onions, mushrooms, and then, when you go to order it, you can get it with or without. And you definitely want it with, you gotta get it fully loaded. That's the real treatment down in Philadelphia, so I felt like it was a necessity to have it all together in stuffed shells. Now finally what we're going to do is we're going to do some garlic, chop it up. I love garlic, so I felt like we had to have it in with our saute here. And what you do here is just with the flat of your blade, you're going to press down on that garlic till it's almost flat. I mean, like a pancake, You can have an onion press as well that'll mince it up for you, but I think fresh chopped garlic just by hand works just as well. Might take a little extra work, but it's worth it. Smell like garlic the rest of the day. Now, once we have all our vegetables chopped up, we're gonna throw that all in the skillet and mix it up very well. That's gonna go on the stove at like a medium heat with 2 tablespoons of butter. Once you got that in there, you want to go ahead and stir that up really well. And meanwhile, if you don't already, you want to have a pot of water boiling on the side. So while this is cooking, you can also do the shells at the same time. It only takes about 10-12 minutes covered at a really high heat, and then once you got those done, you're going to want to throw those in a colander and rinse them really well with some cold water. It's not going to hurt to have these cooled right down because we're going to be throwing these in the oven later. Now let's get a look at our steak, and everything is just starting to turn out really well. Look at how the onions and the mushrooms, they're cooking right down. The steak is starting to brown up really nice. And now what we're gonna do is press our steak, onions, and mushrooms flat. so it covers the entire bottom of the skillet. And what that's gonna do is let that steak brown up real nicely, get like a really nice sear, kind of crunch up. And then we're gonna add a half tablespoon of pepper, salt, a tablespoon of dill steak sauce, and a couple tablespoons of ketchup. A good squirt will do it, I don't think it's necessary to have too much in there, but it can't hurt, just eyeball it. Then we're going to stir that up really good. Once you get it all blended together very well, we're going to remove it from the heat, put that in a bowl on the side. Now, before you wash your cast iron skillet, we're going to add a cup of beef broth, a cup of milk, and a tablespoon of cornstarch. Now you're going to want to whisk this together. I just reuse my skillet, no sense of washing more than one dish. And get that together before turning on the heat. We're going to stuff our shells. Now we're going to take our steak, onion, and pepper mixture, and we're going to stuff these shells and then lay them out in a greased casserole dish. It's going to take a few minutes because there's so many of them, but this is where it doesn't hurt to have everything cool down, because as soon as we get these stuffed, these are going to go back in the oven to kind of crisp up and melt some cheese. Once you get them all finished up, we're going to cover these. I used some Parmesan cheese here that I had left over from the Super Toscana episode. Once you get these kind of blanketed with all the cheese, what we're going to do is add some of our smoked provolone and Cooper cheese from here at Bell's Meat Poultry. We smoke ourselves. You're going to want to get a little bit of cheese on every single one of these, because it'll melt down into the steak and the pepper and onion and really kind of hold it together. Use about half the cheese, and then with the other half, we're going to put that in our skillet with our beef broth and put that on a low heat to simmer until this melts and blends even. Once we get that to blend pretty even, we're going to pour this right over top of our stuffed shells. Now, cast iron skillets are heavy, and I had to dump our sauce into a different bowl to be able to spread this over top of the stuffed shells. And it's really important to make sure that you get the sauce right into the shell, because that's what's going to give it moisture and a lot of flavor, Use about half of that sauce, and then what we're going to do is bake it uncovered at 350 for about 10 minutes, and look at our masterpiece. The cheese is browned up really nicely. The steak's even got a little more of a crisp to it. I mean, these things just turned out wonderful, and they're excellent. Feed a few people, and they're easy to make. As soon as you get it on your styrofoam tray, you want to add some of the sauce that is left over. Put that over top and serve on a plate and dig in. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, go down below, like it, and subscribe. I'm going to keep pumping these out. I really enjoy making these, and it's good food. I mean, these Philly cheesesteak stuffed shells turned out amazing, and I hope you try them out. Any suggestions on what I should be cooking next, or if you have a great recipe that you want me to try out, let me know in the comments, or even shoot me a text or message, and I'll get right to it. Thanks for watching. Bon appetit. That's good stuff.